Trust me, I didn't think I'd be here either. You may be wondering, why in the world is this Asian kid standing on the stage of his old school mooching up to his mom? Well, funny enough, when I told my friend who my topic was going to be for this, she looked at me and said, "Was your mom holding you at like gunpoint or something?" And as silly as it was, those types of comments are exactly what pushed me to be up here today. You see, ever since I was a little kid in elementary school, people were assuming things about my mom and the way she raised me and my brother that dumbfounded me. Because the mom they described sounded nothing like my mom. The mom they probably thought I had was the harsh, uncaring, and boring moms they saw on TV. When in reality, she was the complete opposite. So, real quick, I'm going to say a couple of statements, and I want everyone to raise your hand if this is something that someone around you or some of your friends have assumed about your mom. 1, the extra work that she gave you was meant to prevent you from having fun in some way. Right. 2, what you want to do didn't matter to your mom. Okay, son. And then 3, that your mom is incapable of having fun. Okay. These are 3 common misconceptions that come in a tiger mom stereotypes package and are frequently made about my mom due to the simple fact that she is Chinese. Now, instead of raising your hand if this is something that someone else has assumed about your mom, I want you to raise your hand if you have thought even one of these things about your own mom. Okay. Well, for me, I've thought a couple of these about my own mom. But to those of you who just raised your hand to possibly every one of these statements, I hope that my talk today can change the way you view your mom and the way you view others. Because today, I'm going to be walking you through some experiences that I've shared with my mom that not only defy these common stereotypes, but allow me to appreciate her even more. The first common misconception I'd like to address is probably the one that feels closest to the truth for most of us, which is that the extra work, classes, extracurriculars were meant to prevent us from having fun. You see, ever since I was a little kid in elementary school, my afternoons were never as free as I wanted them to be. My mom pushed me to take advantage of as many extracurriculars as possible. So, in 7th grade, this is when those extra works really started to bother me. Hanging out with friends became harder, and I was constantly complaining about the extra work that I had to do compared to my peers. It got to the point when one Friday afternoon, one of my friends walked up to me and asked me if I could go to their house to hang out. And I declined. Again. They looked at me and said, "Dude, why does your mom force you to do all these extra things even though you clearly hate it so much?" This shocked me. Because for some reason, I took it as an attack. Not an attack on me, an attack on my mom. You see, I took it as an attack on my mom because I thought that they were just judging my mom for things that she couldn't control. For something that she couldn't control. And I looked back at them and I said, "I don't know," and I walked away. This expanded my view immensely. I began to realize all the pitying looks from people around me. Who probably thought my life at home was endless labor. And then I realized it's because I thought and expressed that it was. But when I look back on those moments during my extracurriculars, I remembered another feeling that I felt. Gratefulness. I was grateful that my mom was pushing me to experience so many new things. I was grateful that I was acquiring so many new skills. And lastly, I was grateful that my mom cared so simply paving my road for success. Now, there's not a huge difference between 7th grade me and current me. In fact, I probably still have quite a bit of maturing left to do. But I can very proudly say, as nerdy as it sounds, that I'm glad my mom gave me a 2nd grade Kumon workbook in 1st grade. Another thought that the interaction between me and my friends shared was the idea of force. The idea that all those extracurriculars weren't things that we wanted to do, yet instead things that our tiger moms had forced us to do. This one, at least for me and my brother, was much further from the truth. When it came to our hobbies and interests, my mom never purposely ignored them. In fact, she pushed us to pursue them. For example, as you all may know, Ramadan recently ended. Well, a couple of years ago in 6th grade, a couple of my Muslim friends invited me and all of my classmates to do a day of Ramadan with them. I'm not a religious person, but I thought it would be an enlightening and interesting experience, so I accepted. On the way home, I was pumped. I was telling my mom all about the plans that me and my friend had made, which were to wake up at 4 a.m., stuff my belly full of as much food as I could cook, which mainly consisted of peanut butter sandwiches and cereal, and then come home at night and wait for her to cook my food. She looked at me and said, "That sounds like a lot of fun." The next morning came, and to no one's surprise, the 3 alarms I had set for 3:55, 4, and 4:05 had no use in waking me up. Instead, what did wake me up was the sound of a gentle knock on my door, and my mom walking in with a tray of foods much more exquisite than cereal and peanut butter sandwiches, with her nightgown still on. I was still Robbie, but I looked up to her as she folded the legs underneath and propped it up against me on my bed. She looked at me and said in Chinese, "I know how much you want to do this, so hurry and eat. The sun's going to wake up soon." This may not seem very monumental to most people, but to me, this showed just how much she cared about not just my interests, but what I wanted to do. But not just my interests, but also what I wanted to do. Not to mention picking up the cello and this year pursuing speech and debate, which is ultimately what led me here onto this stage. The next thing I want to talk about is some that most of you have probably already seen, which is the vague yet implied stigma that Asian moms can't have fun, which is our last misconception. Granted, they're not party moms who are going to let their kids smoke marijuana and drink alcohol. In fact, I'm pretty sure most moms aren't like that. But when it comes to a good time, I'm pretty sure most Asian moms know how to make the most of it. For example, ever since I was 6 years old, my family and my 2 Asian godmother's families have made it a tradition to go to a nice, warm, sunny place during winter break to escape the cold. Most recently, we went on a trip around the Caribbean, and we saw a bunch of cool stuff. But it would be incredibly ironic if I stood here trying to frantically explain to you that Asian moms are cool and fun using my own experiences. However, there is one experience that me and my mom shared that allowed me to see just how easygoing and fun she actually is. We were watching a newly released movie in 2022, and it surprisingly ended with both of us teary-eyed, refusing to look at each other because we didn't want to admit it. The movie was Turning Red, and if you guys haven't seen it, Turning Red is a Disney animated coming-to-age film about a young Chinese girl who is figuring out problems with her mom, and also turns into a giant red panda whenever she gets too excited. And surprisingly, what made us emotional wasn't the boy band. Instead, it's what the movie had to say about traditional Chinese moms. This Chinese mom was, in fact, cruel and harsh. And spoiler warning, at the end of the movie, Mei Li and her mom were able to resolve their conflict after they got into that huge fight in the stadium, when Mei Li decided to keep her inner panda, which ultimately resembled her picking the left problems due to the extra workload because it was interfering with my time to just chill out. While I sure didn't have it as bad as May did, the lesson of living a less uptight life left me and my mom with a weekly movie night. Just a weekly tradition of movie nights. Just the two of us. Having an Asian mom is not for the weak, as cliche as that sounds. Not because of her or our moms, but because of the implications that come with it. Constantly being told by society that Asian moms are uncaring and uncaring and boring and can't have fun is hard. Knowing that my mom pushed me to do my best and having to learn that it was all for the better was hard. Constantly being asked by people around me whether my mom actually cares about what I want to do is hard. And always seeing posts on social media where the main punchline is that Asian moms can't have fun stays hard. You see, for the longest time, I thought my mom truly was as harsh as society had told me. But the experiences that I've had with my mom, and I'm sure many others have told me otherwise. A couple of months ago, I was discouraged because I wasn't accomplishing my own goals the way I wanted to. And I was scared that my mom would be disappointed in me. Instead, she said something back to me that has been somewhat of a voice for my motivation. And I want to leave you all with it because I think it perfectly encompasses what having an Asian mom is truly like. She looked back at me and said, "Yes, my expectations for you are high. But that is only because my love for you is just as high as my expectations are. What you do, I do not care. Just always give 200%.